That's okay. He'll be old someday, too. Maybe we'll let you live that long. Although my name is Fayrene, I'm usually called Fay by my friends, and there's a story behind that, too. I'm also really not a dyed-in-the-wool poet. The first poem I ever wrote was written 70 years ago, you'll be glad to hear. James, are you adding or subtracting or anything? It was a junior class English assignment. Unknown to me, my mother kept that poem, and when she passed away in 2004, my sister sent the original pencil copy, complete with a red B+ on it, to me. She thought it was worth more than a B+ because she had been the object of the poem. The next poem was written 50 years later in Debbie Nolan's creative writing class at State Fair, and it was a limerick. And this, I called mine a delimerick. There was an old lady named Fay who on a very cold January day, in search of more knowledge, enrolled at the college. Now hopes she can make it through May. So you can see that Debbie has been quite an influence in my life. I'm not a native of Missouri, but I moved here in 1994 because I had been to visit my daughter, and they told me that there was a creative writers group here, and that I wanted to get into some creative writing. So then I met Vicki Grove and Jew Ray Woods and Faith Bemis. So now you know how I have been influenced. It's Debbie's fault that I enjoy exploring and writing poetry today. Rewrote everything from cinquain, limericks, free verse, rhymed and unrhymed, and there was even an assignment to write a sonnet. Oh, heavens. I think I wrote something about a busy bee buzzing in her bonnet. Debbie assigned to us to write a sonnet or something like that. I prefer to write short poems, probably due to my short attention span. But I've also had success in later combining two or more of them into longer ones. I have discovered that if you enter a creative writers contest or something like this, there's a little bit of money. And I think I figured it up the other day. I maybe have won a total of $200 in all these years of writing. Anyway, one of my little poems, or two of my little poems, one was called Deceit. A robin scolded me today, protesting from the balcony, plastic flowers in the pots. And another, Afternoon, blue willow teacup promising tranquility, spice-laden aroma. And then one time I needed a poem at the last minute to enter in a contest, so I combined two, and then at the contest, they were reading off the winners, and they had been judged by the Poet Laureate of Arkansas. And they got through, there had been something like 70 entries. Well, I figured when they got through down to about the 8th honorable mention, I thought, oh, well, that ends me. They read the third place poem and said, we're sorry, but we lost the front sheet, so we don't know who wrote this poem. If you wrote a poem called Spirit Wings, would you come up and get your award? And I sat there. And so in a little bit, they repeated the same thing. And my granddaughter said, Grandma, that's your poem. Spirit Wings. Dawn slowly lights the jet trails to vie with pink-tinged clouds of sunrise. Majestic, mysterious trees rise from the night mist into morning. The full silver day moon goes quietly away. Although I'm not a Missouri native, as I told you, my mother was born near Warsaw and aged 97 was chosen Queen of Pioneer Days in our hometown of Beaver, Oklahoma. Since she is the subject of my longer poem, I felt it would fit this celebration today. It's called My Mother's Hands. And I wrote this on scraps of paper as I sat in the waiting room of the hospital when she was almost 101. My mother's bruised, swollen hands restlessly roam the crumpled sheets of her hospital bed. Victims of life-sustaining therapy, their hapless flight gives wings to my memories. These hands made little girl mud pies in the mountains of Ozarks and cradled her favorite doll as the covered wagon rolled westward to Oklahoma's no man's land. Her hands rocked, fed, and tended 5 children, milked cows, churned butter, or battled snakes as she and her husband struggled through the lean years of the Great Depression and Dust Bowl days. These hands fashioned feed sack clothing, washed them with homemade lye soap, and hung them to billow in winter's icy gusts or the relentless hot winds of summer. Her hands kneaded the dough for crusty loaves of bread, cinnamon rolls, and fragrant donuts, stirred simmering pots of brown beans, and the endless breakfast stick-to-your-ribs oatmeal. These hands shuffled dominoes and cards as she subtly fed arithmetic to unsuspecting children and grandchildren, or pulled taffy, proving that childhood joys are not limited by dollars and cents. Her hands gently turned the pages as she read to her family by flickering coal oil lamp on snowy evenings, and later as she taught countless students to read in drafty country schools. More than 100 years have passed since her baby hands grasped her mother's, years in which their influence burgeoned as they touched the lives of 5 generations. At last, my mother's hands are stilled, their earthly task complete, yet their indomitable strength will live on through endless ages of posterity. Now, James was delighted because he was going to have the oldest poet reading and the youngest. My granddaughter, Sarah, who's been writing poetry since she was in about 2nd grade, is a Girl Scout, and consequently, they're dashed his hopes because they're a camp out at the fairgrounds. I took a poem of hers that I have framed and put on the wall, and so you will have a little bit of representation of the young poet. Very short. Love means that you accept a person with all their failures, stupidities, ugly points, and nonetheless, you see perfection in imperfection itself. I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you. I'm going to do a commercial, James. The Senior Center has a writers group, and we are doing a contest, and there will be notes about it in the paper, both papers this next week, and the due date is the 10th of October. The only thing is you have to be 60 or more in order to be a participant. And somebody told me today that they have been waiting till they were 60 in order to take part in that. I won't mention who. Thank you.